My name is Simon Foxall. I work for the architects practice. If there's one thing that architects need to hang on to when working for schools, is that they need to remember that the client is multifaceted. And although there are very powerful voices speaking for the government, for the contractors, for the local authority or the academy chain, there is almost nobody speaking for either the teaching staff or the pupils in particular. And it's important that architects remember that they have a professional duty to all their clients and users of their buildings. And they are very well placed to provide spaces that really do work for teachers and pupils and sometimes the wider community. And that isn't always on the agenda of everybody else concerned. The capital funding for expanded full school facilities probably will come, but it will come too late for many. Capital funding is a constantly shifting ground. It's shifted year by year, and even though it may get better in one area, it will probably get worse in another. So there's no point holding out for it. You have to get on and build things now, particularly when school places are in desperately short supply in this country, and we need to be building far more than we're building at present.
I'm Ayo Alu. I work for Kia Construction and I'm a senior design manager for the education sector. It's very hard to build a building that pleases absolutely everybody, and it's very hard to build a building that does everything that everybody wants it to do. So it's an education of that end user as to what their own priorities are. Do you want a nice environment? Do you want it to be colourful? Do you want it to be easily accessible? Do you want outdoor access? All these questions have to come out through the engagement process, so that when we design the building, the architect is then able to say back to the end user, I've prioritised your needs and I think these ones win over these, basically. So it's very important that architects realise that the world is changing, the construction environment is changing, multidisciplinary organisations are springing up, and everyone is expected to have much more of a broader perspective in terms of how they construct a building across all the disciplines, and that goes for us as contractors too. So keep your eyes open, I'd say, and don't focus purely on architecture, because it's a lot bigger than that.
I am Donald Farquharson. I am the Interim Director of Property and Infrastructure Services at Kent County Council. How can architects make better use of their abilities to influence design in schools and things? I think that's a whole range of issues in that, because they can help with the pedagogy, they can make ideas, they can solve problems. And the biggest problem is really, in today's world, budgets. There is no money available to speak of, and we have to squeeze an awful lot into a very, very small pot. So what we really would like architects to do is help us solve that budgetary problem by designing ways of working that means that there is a great deal of flexibility in a school building, or indeed really from any building, so that these buildings are sustainable, they'll last for some considerable time, and we can reuse them in ways that, today, when we're building it, we would never dream of doing. The outside space in a school these days, particularly in primary schools, is extremely important to assist in education and the delivery of the curriculum. So all those areas, they need to be thought through, and whilst people like me who oversee the creation perhaps of these schools certainly haven't got necessarily the breadth of experience or the breadth of vision that we would like to see from architects in helping us overcome those issues between the practicality of the building and actually what else it can do for to help deliver the curriculum.
I'm Jane Wade. I'm the Operational Manager for Property for the Vale of Glamorgan Council, and I deliver education projects on behalf of our Education Department. I'm also seconded to Welsh Government to advise on 21st century schools as Project Director. Standardisation isn't about just having an end product that's standardised, but more about having standard components. What we want to look at is having standard classroom designs. Is it right to be redesigning a classroom, 100 times over? So, and then it's how the architect can put together these standard parts to create something inspirational in its own location. Spaces need to be flexible because the ways that we teach it are changing. So it's about creating these different learning environments within the one building. So that might be small breakout spaces that pupils can go and work singularly in. It might be having different types of corridor layouts that create these different types of environment for learning, and it's about having that flexibility within the building that learning can change and develop with the pupils.
So my name's Lindsay Smith and I'm the Director of Education for Morgan Sindall. So it's about being collaborative and it's about working as a team. And I also think that the collaboration is more than that. So if we have a batch of schools with different architects, it's about all the architects joining together to look at the best practice, to look at the things that are working well, to collaborate, to share information, and obviously to try and innovate and create further value for money across the piece. So it's not about having our teams in silos, it's about everyone coming together as one. Everyone says, oh, there's no money at the moment. Actually, that's the situation, so we have to get our heads around that and think about how we can give more for less. And to my mind, collaborating as an industry, collaborating with educational establishments and collaborating with our peers and our competitors would be, to me, the best way to drive that forward.
So I'm Andrew Barrowclough, I'm the Group Design Director at Waits, and I'm also an architect. I don't think that an architect can work effectively unless they see their work through to completion. Otherwise, how does one learn from the mistakes that one makes? So all too often we're seeing architects just engage in the early part of the process, but the execution of the detail that sits behind the concept is really critically important. And all too often we're seeing good concepts being weakened by poor execution. I think all too often we overlook the long-term benefit and performance that we derive from the buildings that are constructed, and particularly in schools. There's such a huge focus on initial capital cost. I personally believe there ought to be a great deal more focus on the value proposition that great design delivers. And value ultimately, in my view, is measured by the effectiveness of a school over its life. So we're looking at 25, 30 years, perhaps even longer. So if we can really deliver designs that work effectively and can be measured, so we know that they're working effectively, and that's not just about space utilization, that's not about educational outcomes, it's about some real basic things like energy. So we need to be in a position where we can predict accurately what the energy usage of buildings will be and make sure that we deliver on those promises.
I'm Felix Peterkin, I'm a project ambassador at St Cyrie's School. When we were involved in the interview process, a few of the companies that could have been used weren't interested in working with the pupils, and the company that did get it in the end felt that they were interested in working with the pupils, so that's why they got the job and the others didn't. And we feel that now this school is as good as it is because the school council has been consulted and they were involved in decision-making processes. Yeah, it does seem to be more of an upbeat mood because we're in a better place and more of a brighter space, so therefore people have a better attitude towards their work.
My name is Pete Lewis. I'm assistant head teacher at St Cyrie's School in Penarth. So when we first started this process, I thought it was for me to try and come up with all the solutions, and I would sit down with the architect and say that we needed an extra office in this space, and I would try and look at the space and see where I think that could go. And I quickly realised that actually that was not my job, that I needed to explain what we needed, and that actually he was far better than I was at deciding where that should go. The priorities in terms of design have been to create bright, light, engaging and exciting learning spaces. And to combine with that some flexibility so that the building is future-proofed. Children learn everywhere in this building, and it's not just in classrooms. So it's about creating spaces that are engaging and stimulating for the children, and that could be circulation space, breakout space, classrooms, but wherever children are in the school, that's where they learn. And we wanted to consider every part of the building as a learning space.
My name is Amelia Baston, I'm 16 years old and I'm currently attending St Cyrus School. The breakout spaces are just outside the classroom. There's about seating for about 10 pupils, 10 to 12 pupils to go outside, and there's like sofas and kind of cool like design desks and chairs for you to go outside and work on. And it's just nice, it kind of takes away sometimes the idea of just the teacher being in charge and the teacher kind of telling you what to do. You kind of can do your own thing, and especially if you're a bit older, it's nicer because you can kind of take charge of your own work, which is really nice.
I'm Karen Hutchings and I'm head teacher at Newport Primary School in Liverpool. Really exciting for us actually, because I've been head teacher here since the 8th of January 2001, and the maintenance of this building's been very difficult. It's something we've really hoped for over time, and now it's here. We're really excited, and we know in May next year we'll be in a new building. One of the big emphasis we've put on the design is that we'll be able to have lots of light and lots of airiness, lots of fresh air. We're hoping, you know, because we've thought about different spaces over there, you know, gone are the days when you have an ICT suite, because ICT is everywhere and it's through everything that we do. And I think as teachers and head teachers, we've got to accept that it isn't something that happens in isolation, it's something that happens right throughout the school day. You know, we'd come up with an idea and say, what do you think, could we have, you know, a flow of space? And they'd sit down, and of course we would just come up with the ideas and wouldn't have to think about the health and safety aspects or meeting regulations. And our architect Dave would say, oh, I don't know if that's going to be possible actually, because of this, because of that. But the best thing about it was he would go away and we didn't expect him to, but he'd always come back and say, you know, you really wanted to have this flow, this feeling of flow and light through your room and through your school, and we said it wouldn't be possible. I've thought of an idea to do that. So whilst he did challenge us, he would also come back with solutions, and I have to say that was every single time.
My name's Paul Anderson, I'm head teacher of Northway Primary School in Liverpool. Seeing how the architect would take our ideas on board, get his overlay sheets out and start scribbling on it and sort of overlaying on the plans was a really exciting process. Then we were excited when we saw the plans initially. We thought they were fantastic. But by being involved, by communicating, by having that relationship, we are getting so much more for our children. You are the experts in terms of how you can develop space, how you can develop a site. We would have a view in terms of what are priorities for schools currently and moving forward. And our experience has been working together, having that clear, open communication, having time for reflection and going back and looking at the process moving forward together. We've ended up with a fantastic design, which I know the architect is extremely excited by, we're extremely excited by, and visitors who've had the opportunity to come and see the early stages of the build process have been extremely excited by as well.